Let's set the scene again but differently. Picture Eala not long ago walking off the court after a first set so one-sided it felt like a misprint. 6-0. The Foro Italico Court 6 May 7, 2025. By any cold hard metric the match was finished. The kind of scoreline that sends crowds shuffling toward exits, muttering about early dinners and easier ways to spend an afternoon. But here's the thing, the crowd didn't leave. They got louder. Philippine flags unfurled and held high, voices singing, not chanting, singing like in a church or a revolution. And those people weren't delusional. They weren't clinging to a loss out of stubborn pride. They were making a statement, one that the scoreboard couldn't register. Fast forward exactly 1 year, May 2026. Eala now sits at world number 44, and in her corner, working on her clay game with a focus that borders on the obsessive, is Tony Nadal, the same Tony Nadal who engineered 10 Italian Open titles for his nephew, the same man who turned red clay into a personal kingdom. She turned down a softer draw in Spain just to get to Rome a full 7 days early. The last time I was here, she says, I think I've changed a lot, won a lot. It's nice to see the welcome. There's a huge Filipino community here. I'm so excited. What happens on that crushed brick over the next fortnight will tell us whether those fans who never left were right all along. Rewind to that 2025 beatdown. Marta Kostyuk didn't just beat Eala, she erased her from the clay for 57 minutes. Final line 6-0, 6-1, a loss so total it became a headline about finality itself. But here's what the box score doesn't capture. Eala didn't flee Rome, she stayed. She played doubles with Coco Gauff, fought to the quarterfinals, lost to the defending champions. She chose to remain inside the building after being personally dismantled. That's not a footnote, that's character you don't have to guess at. Now it's 2026. She returns to the same dirt ranked 30 places higher with a 2-3 clay record on the season, but with the architect of the greatest clay dynasty in tennis history sitting in her player box. This week she pulled out of the WTA 125 Catalonia Open where she was the number 3 seed. Not hurt, not tired, because Rome called louder. She's already on the Foro Italico practice courts. The draw doesn't open until May 5th. She didn't wait for it, she arrived before it. Here's the tension that no amount of flag waving can dissolve. Eala has said it plainly, she prefers hard courts. Her own words from Rome last year, I think personally I definitely prefer hard courts, and the numbers haven't argued. In 2026 her 3 clay losses came against Leylah Fernandez, Elise Mertens and Carolina Muchova. The first set scores 1-6, 2-6, 0-6. Against elite clay specialists she hasn't yet found the key. Tennis 365 put it bluntly after her Madrid loss on April 25th. Eala has dropped 5 matches this year in which she won 5 or fewer games combined. That is not a fluctuation, that is a pattern with a shape to it. And yet, she is in Rome deliberately, on the surface where that pattern lives, on the court where Rafael Nadal, the player she watched from the Roland Garros, stands at age 12, won more titles than any human in tournament history. The conflict isn't just between Eala and an opponent. It's between where she currently is on clay and where the 38,000 Filipinos who live in this city have already decided she is going. What's different in 2026 starts with a coaching development that has received almost no coverage proportional to its size. In April 2026, Eala confirmed that Tony Nadal, Rafa's uncle, the coach who stood in his corner for all 10 of those Roman titles, the mind behind the footwork, the spin, the physical relentlessness, is now actively working with her team. Her own reaction, if you had told me that years ago my mind would have been blown. I wouldn't have believed you. It's fantastic, he has that knowledge and is able to help my team immensely. This is not ceremonial. Tony Nadal does not lend his name to projects. He coached one of the greatest athletes in sports history from childhood to retirement. He is now transferring that same clay blueprint to a 20-year-old from Quezon City. The Italian Open is the first major exam of whether that knowledge has taken root. Consider a small but telling moment from April 7, 2026. Eala wins her first clay match of the year in Linz against Julia Grabher, ranked 89th. Score 6-4, 6-3. Composed, controlled, exactly the profile of a player executing a new game plan rather than just surviving. After the match, the coach of Leylah Fernandez, who later beat Eala in Stuttgart, told his player, "She's not going to go down easy, you're going to have to earn it." A player who beats you 1 week forces the next opponent to prepare differently the week after. That is Eala at 2-3 on clay in 2026. Now consider what she's returning to. Not just the surface, the community. Rome is home to approximately 38,000 permanent Filipino residents. Not visitors, not tournament week arrivals, permanent residents. The second largest non-Italian ethnic community in the capital, according to Statista's 2025 data. Across Italy, 156,317 documented Filipino legal residents call this country home. The Lazio region, which contains Rome, holds over a quarter of them. When Eala arrived in Rome for the first time in 2025, her honest reaction was, "I didn't expect such a big Filipino population here, but even just walking the streets, I've run into Filipinos 5 times already. You know, when you're seeing another Filipino, it's such a blessing. So many places feel like home because of that." She said that before she'd played a single point, before the bagel, before the flags on court 6. Put yourself in the position of a Filipino living in Rome on May 7, 2025. You've worked in this city for years, building a career in a country that wasn't built around you. You take the metro to the Foro Italico for a first-round WTA 1000 match. The score goes to 6-0 in the first set. Every sporting instinct says leave quietly, avoid the embarrassment. Instead, the crowd gets louder, the flags go higher, the singing starts. The video of that moment, posted by ABS-CBN Sports with the caption, "Despite the loss, Filipino fans at Court 6 still showered Alex Eala with love," spread across every Filipino social media feed within hours. Not because it was a victory, because it was something more durable than victory. It was a community announcing that their investment in this player does not run on results alone. That was 2025. Now trace what has happened since. A year-end ranking of number 50, a career high. A peak of number 29 in March 2026, the highest any Filipino woman has ever been ranked in WTA history. A win over Iga Swiatek, a WTA 1000 semifinal. A viral Spanish-language post-match interview at Madrid 2026 that reminded the tennis world she commands crowds in 3 languages. The fans who stayed on court 6 for a 6-0 loss were not delusional, they were early. In April 2026, after Eala's 2-6, 1-6 loss to Mertens in Madrid, Greg Rusedski, former world number 4 1997 U.S. Open finalist, one of the sharpest analytical voices in the sport, sat down on his podcast and offered a diagnosis. Not guesswork, diagnosis. Being at the academy with Rafa on clay, he spent a lot of time with her, so she knows what to do. It's going to be harder for people to hit a hole through her on clay. It's going to be much more physically combative. Then he placed her trajectory in a cultural register that stopped the tennis conversation cold. She's like Manny Pacquiao. Anywhere around the world where there are people from the Philippines, they're always talking about her. Automatically her matches sell out, she opens up a marketplace, people just love her. I'd love to see her crack the top 20. When a Grand Slam finalist reaches for the name of Manny Pacquiao to explain Alex Eala, he's not making a tennis comparison. He's recognizing a once-per-generation convergence between an athlete and a nation. Pacquiao didn't just win fights, he gave millions of people a reason to feel seen in a world that often looked past them. Rusedski, with a career's worth of knowing which players move markets and which merely move ranking points, is placing Eala in that register. The Italian Open runs May 5 to May 17. After that, Eala has entered the WTA 125 Parma Ladies Open, which runs May 12 through May 18, a deliberate overlap. This is not one tournament, it's a clay court immersion program leading toward a single destination, Roland Garros, late May 2026, where she is already confirmed in the main draw. Every match Eala plays in Rome is not just a result. It is a data point in the most consequential question of her 2026 season. Can Tony Nadal's coaching translate into wins against elite clay opposition before the French Open draw is made? The Italian Open is a 96-player WTA 1000 field that includes Sabalenka, Goff, Swiatek, and Rybakina. The draw will not be forgiving, but a run to the quarterfinals, 3 wins against that caliber of field, would push Eala back toward the top 35 and reapproach her number 29 career high with clay credibility attached. For the 38,000 Filipinos who live in Rome and will not need to book a single flight to see this happen, the stakes are not about ranking points. They are about something that took generations to build: visibility. 156,000 Filipinos live in Italy, a country that did not build its national identity around them. For years, they moved through Italian public life largely unseen. Alex Eala, 20 years old, playing a WTA 1000 draw at the most glamorous tennis venue in Europe, carries them onto a court that broadcasts in 190 countries. That is not merely an athletic achievement, that is a social one. 6-0 then 6-1. That was the Italian Open on May 7, 2025. Marta Kostyuk did not just beat Eala, she walked through her. First set in under 30 minutes. Second set barely more contested. Eala won a total of 1 game on the court where her idol had built a cathedral, but she did not disappear quietly. She went to the net, acknowledged the crowd, and then in doubles with Coco Gauff came back out and fought to the quarterfinals. She chose to stay in the building after a personal demolition and compete again. When Eala won her first clay match of 2026 in Linz, Austria, a 6-4, 6-3 win over Julia Grabher on April 7, she stepped to the microphone and switched mid-sentence into Tagalog to address the Filipino fans in the crowd directly. In Austria, where the audience could not have numbered more than a few dozen Filipinos, she found them anyway. Salamat sa lahat ng Filipino na nandito. Thank you to all the Filipinos who are here. She has never once framed her clay struggles as an obstacle. Her framing has always been time and work. I think I can play as well on clay, not I will never be comfortable here. The vision board she posted at the start of 2026 included the clay swing specifically. This was not a surprise detour, it was always the plan. She turns 21 in May. She is in Rome. She skipped the easy path to be here. Court 6 a bagel, flags going up anyway, then Tony Nadal in her corner, then a strategic withdrawal from Spain not to rest but to arrive, then the Foro Italico clay courts a week before the draw is set. A player who refuses to let her first chapter in Rome be the final word. What you watched unfold on that court in 2025 was not a loss. It was the opening scene. The fans who stayed and sang in the empty stadium after the Kostyuk match were not confused about results. They were reading a story the scoreboard hadn't caught up to yet. They saw someone worth following through the difficult part, and the difficult part is almost over. Eala is in Rome right now. Tony Nadal's clay education is about to face its most consequential examination. Roland Garros is 3 weeks away. So here is the question worth debating. Can Eala win 3 rounds at the Italian Open in 2026, and do you believe Tony Nadal's coaching has genuinely changed her clay game before Roland Garros? Put your prediction below. We read every single one. The Italian Open draw drops May 5th. The moment Eala's first round match is confirmed, this channel will be the first place breaking down her path, her opponent, and what the matchup means for her Roland Garros seeding. If you are not subscribed right now, you will be reading about the story somewhere else the morning after it happens, instead of being here before it does. The bell icon is what separates the people who follow the story from the people who discover it after it's over.